That's not a
Let's
rib.
talk about TSN and their Off the Record show. This is something that I've always been fascinated with, that you guys had such a great relationship with Landsberg and would continue to not only send talent, but the McMahons. They filmed 3 shows on July 22nd of 1999, one with Vince McMahon, the second with Vince and Linda, and the third with Shane and Stephanie. And they're going to air these on July 27th, July 28th, and August 3rd. And they're going to air at 6 p.m. Eastern. So it's a really good time spot too. They plan to talk about, the Owen Hart death, the Owen Hart Raw show, the decision not to stop the pay-per-view, writing the letter to the Calgary Sun about Martha Hart, why no one went to Brian Pillman's funeral, all the hot topics. This feels like something Vince would avoid, but he tackled it with Landsberg multiple times. What was the weird relationship with Vince McMahon and TSN's Off the Record?
Well, we always had a pretty good relationship with TSN in particular, and with Landsberg. We cooperated with him and would give him talent from time to time. And Vince really didn't avoid the press. Vince isn't one that really likes to, believe it or not, get out there and give a lot of those interviews, but sometimes he feels the need that he has to, and that he will jump out and do that shit. So in this regard, it was an opportunity. They wanted to come in to the studio, and they wanted to come in, do the interviews in Stanford and do the whole family. So he opened himself up to it and invited him in and felt, okay, you want to do this, then let's go do it. And that's all there really was to it. It wasn't anything more than, we had a relationship with them, and it was a good relationship for many years, actually.
Let's talk about some of the topics here. Landsberg has always been pro WWF, of course, but he's still, asking the tough questions. And when he talks about the Over the Edge show, that's got to be something that Vince doesn't really want to talk about. Are you guys given like a list of the topics or the questions in advance, or is Vince just, letting him shoot from the hip?
Vince is fine shooting from the hip. I don't remember anybody getting anything in advance at all. And I wasn't that involved with it. I believe I was there for part of the interview, but I don't think I was there for the whole thing. And, Vince is pretty good about what you got. Let's go. He doesn't need to have a list of questions and everything beforehand. I'm sure a lot of times we want to know what's the subject matter, where are we going, what do you want, and so that we're prepared. But for the most part, it doesn't need to have verbatim, what are your questions?
I mean, they get in details like where Vince says that he sent a blank check to the funeral home for Owen's death. And, Martha wanted a very lavish funeral, and he was happy to pay for all of it. And when Landsberg says, well, why did no one from the company come to Pillman's funeral? He says, that's an entirely different set of circumstances.
Which it is.
I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying that's stuff that you wouldn't normally expect Vince to be talking about. But I mean, not only did he talk about it, he talked about it on TV. Of course they discussed, everything about Ventura and Bret Hart. If you can find it, I know this is not on the network, but it is online. You can dig around and you can find it. It's a fascinating appearance. And one of the things that stuck out to me is they bring up Hulk Hogan, and McMahon says, never say never. And he says that 6 months ago, he couldn't conceive that he'd be working with Ventura. But now he is, because it's good business. And this is pretty funny. When asked if Eric Bischoff called him for a job, if he'd take him, McMahon said he didn't know what Bischoff could offer, but that everything he does is for the betterment of his product and for the fans. This is such a weird thing to go back and look at now, is it not?
Yeah, it is. And it just kind of goes to demonstrate just how crazy this business can be, because, 1 minute you're in a war fighting and trying to gouge out the other guy's eyes, and then the next moment you're back to back with them in a foxhole and looking at somebody else. So it is a strange business that makes strange bedfellows sometimes.